The sun beat down on Lily's vibrant garden as she surveyed her work with a proud smile. Rows of colorful flowers, from fiery marigolds to fragrant lavender, lined the neatly trimmed lawn. This oasis of beauty was her pride and joy, a reflection of her passion for nurturing life. But as Lily admired her creation, a shadow fell across the lawn. She turned to see Mrs. Wilkins, the stern-faced president of the Homeowners Association, striding towards her with purpose. "Lily, I'm afraid we have a problem," Mrs. Wilkins announced, her lips pursed in disapproval. "Your garden has been deemed too colorful. It's drawing unwanted attention and violating our community guidelines." Lily's heart sank. "But this garden brings me so much joy," she pleaded, gesturing to the riot of colors before them. "And the neighbors have always complimented me on it." Mrs. Wilkins shook her head, unmoved. "I'm sorry, but the rules are clear. You have 1 week to bring your garden into compliance, or will be forced to take disciplinary action." Disciplinary action. Lily's brow furrowed in concern. "What does that mean?" "It means you'll be fined." Heavily. Mrs. Wilkins's voice was cold and unyielding. "And if you refuse to comply, we may have to take more drastic measures." Lily's stomach twisted with dread. This garden was her sanctuary, a soothing balm against the stress of everyday life. The thought of losing it filled her with a sense of panic. "There must be some way we can compromise," she pleaded, desperation creeping into her tone. "I'll tone down the colors, maybe plant some more muted flowers." But Mrs. Wilkins was already turning away, her mind made up. 1 week, Lily. That's all the time you have." As the HOA president's retreating figure disappeared down the sidewalk, Lily felt a rising surge of anger. This was her home, her haven. How dare they dictate what she could and couldn't do in her own backyard? Gritting her teeth, Lily made a defiant decision. If the HOA wouldn't listen to reason, she knew just the person who might: Tucker Carlson. The next morning, Lily woke with a renewed sense of purpose. She had placed a call to Tucker Carlson's show, pleading her case, and now she waited anxiously for his team to reach out. As she sipped her coffee, Lily's gaze drifted to the garden outside. The vibrant hues seemed to mock her, a reminder of the looming deadline. She couldn't bear the thought of taming her beloved creation, of stripping away its joy and vitality. Just then, the phone rang, and Lily nearly spilled her drink in her haste to answer. "Hello. This is Samantha from the Tucker Carlson Tonight team," a crisp voice responded. "I understand you have a situation with your homeowners association that you'd like us to cover." Lily launched into a detailed explanation, her words tumbling out in a rush. She described the HOA's demands, the threat of fines and drastic measures, and her deep attachment to the garden that had become her sanctuary. "This sounds like a clear-cut case of HOA overreach," Samantha replied, her tone serious. "Tucker would be very interested in covering your story. Can you be available for an interview this afternoon?" Lily's heart raced. "Yes, of course. I'll be ready." As she hung up the phone, a sense of relief washed over her. Finally, someone was willing to listen and fight on her behalf. The HOA was about to meet its match. Later that day, Lily found herself seated across from Tucker Carlson, the camera lights glaring down on her. She took a deep breath, steeling herself for the confrontation ahead. "So, Lily, tell me, why is your homeowners association so determined to shut down your beautiful garden?" Tucker began, his brow furrowed in concern. Lily launched into her story, her voice rising with indignation. "They claim it's too colorful and violates their community guidelines. But this garden is my passion, my way of bringing joy to my neighborhood. How dare they try to take that away from me?" Tucker nodded solemnly. "It's an outrageous abuse of power. These HOAs often operate like mini dictatorships, trampling on the rights of hardworking homeowners. And you're not alone. We've seen cases like this all across the country." Lily felt a surge of relief. Finally, Someone understood the injustice she was facing. I just want to be able to enjoy my own property without being bullied by the HOA, she pleaded. Please, Tucker, you have to help me fight this. Tucker's expression hardened with determination. Don't worry, Lily. We're going to take this fight straight to the HOA and expose their heavy-handed tactics for the world to see. As the cameras continued to roll, Lily knew that the battle lines had been drawn. The HOA was about to meet its match. The following day, Lily awoke to the sound of commotion outside her home. As she peered through the window, she was met with a startling sight. A throng of news vans and reporters had descended upon her street, their crews swarming around her vibrant garden. Lily hurried outside, her heart pounding. What's going on? She asked, bewildered by the sudden media frenzy. A young reporter rushed over, microphone in hand. Ms. Lily, we're here to cover your story of HOA overreach. Tucker Carlson himself has brought national attention to your fight to save your garden. Lily's eyes widened in disbelief. Tucker Carlson. He really did it. The reporter nodded enthusiastically. Absolutely. The segment aired last night, and it's already gone viral. People all across the country are outraged by the HOA's treatment of you. Lily felt a surge of gratitude mixed with trepidation. On one hand, she was thrilled to have such powerful allies in her corner. On the other, she couldn't help but worry about the potential backlash from the HOA. Just then, a familiar figure emerged from the crowd. Mrs. Wilkins, the HOA president, her face flushed with anger. Lily, what is the meaning of this? She demanded, her voice shrill. How dare you bring the media into our private community affairs? Lily stood her ground, channeling the newfound confidence she had gained from Tucker's support. I'm simply defending my right to enjoy my own property, Mrs. Wilkins. The public has a right to know about the HOA's heavy-handed tactics. Mrs. Wilkins' eyes narrowed to slits. You've brought a hornet's nest down on our heads, Lily. Do you have any idea the kind of damage this is going to do to our community's reputation? Lily couldn't help but feel a twinge of satisfaction. Maybe that's exactly what this community needs, a wake-up call to stop trampling on the rights of its residents. The HOA president's lips tightened into a thin line. Mark my words, Lily, this isn't over. You have no idea the consequences you're about to face. With that, Mrs. Wilkins turned on her heel and stormed off, the reporters trailing in her wake, hungry for more drama. Lily watched her go, a mixture of trepidation and resolve coursing through her veins. She had ignited a firestorm, and she knew the HOA would not back down without a fight. But with Tucker Carlson in her corner, she felt ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. In the days that followed, the media frenzy surrounding Lily's garden only continued to escalate. Tucker Carlson's segment had gone viral, sparking outrage and debate across social media platforms. Lily found herself swept up in a whirlwind of interviews and appearances. Her once quiet suburban life transformed into a high-stakes battle against the tyranny of her homeowners association. While the public rallied to her cause, the HOA was not taking the scrutiny lightly. Mrs. Wilkins and her cohorts launched a relentless campaign to discredit Lily, painting her as an attention-seeking troublemaker who was undermining the very fabric of their community. This is not about a garden, Mrs. Wilkins declared in a scathing op-ed. It's about a selfish individual who is willing to disrupt the peace and harmony of our neighborhood just to get her way. Lily's phone began to ring incessantly, as angry HOA members bombarded her with vitriolic messages and threats. Some even went so far as to vandalize her property, leaving dead flowers and threatening notes on her doorstep. But Lily refused to be cowed. Buoyed by the support of her newfound allies, she stood firm, her resolve only hardening with each new challenge. I'm not going to back down, she declared defiantly in another interview. This is my home, my sanctuary, and I have every right to enjoy it as I see fit. The HOA can try to bully and intimidate me all they want, but I won't let them win. As the battle lines were drawn, The conflict escalated to a fever pitch. Mrs. Wilkins, determined to regain control, began exploring more aggressive tactics to silence Lily and her supporters. One day, as Lily tended to her garden, she was startled by the sudden arrival of a team of burly men in uniform. "What's going on?" she demanded, her heart racing. "Ma'am, we're from the local code enforcement office," one of the men announced, his voice gruff. "We've received a complaint about the state of your property, and we're here to issue a citation." Lily's eyes widened in disbelief. "A citation? But my garden is perfectly maintained." The man shook his head. "I'm sorry, ma'am, but we have our orders. Your garden has been deemed in violation of local ordinances. You have 72 hours to bring it into compliance or face heavy fines." As the code enforcement team began snapping photographs and scribbling notes, Lily felt a growing sense of dread. The HOA's retaliation had taken an unexpected and alarming turn. In the days that followed, the media frenzy surrounding Lily's garden only continued to escalate. Tucker Carlson's segment had gone viral, sparking outrage and debate across social media platforms. Lily found herself swept up in a whirlwind of interviews and appearances. Her once quiet suburban life transformed into a high-stakes battle against the tyranny of her homeowners association. While the public rallied to her cause, the HOA was not taking the scrutiny lightly. Mrs. Wilkins and her cohorts launched a relentless campaign to discredit Lily, painting her as an attention-seeking troublemaker who was undermining the very fabric of their community. "This is not about a garden," Mrs. Wilkins declared in a scathing op-ed. "It's about a selfish individual who is willing to disrupt the peace and harmony of our neighborhood just to get her way." Lily's phone began to ring incessantly, as angry HOA members bombarded her with vitriolic messages and threats. Some even went so far as to vandalize her property, leaving dead flowers and threatening notes on her doorstep. But Lily refused to be cowed. Buoyed by the support of her newfound allies, she stood firm, her resolve only hardening with each new challenge. "I'm not going to back down," she declared defiantly in another interview. "This is my home, my sanctuary, and I have every right to enjoy it as I see fit. The HOA can try to bully and intimidate me all they want, but I won't let them win." As the battle lines were drawn, the conflict escalated to a fever pitch. Mrs. Wilkins, determined to regain control, began exploring more aggressive tactics to silence Lily and her supporters. One day, as Lily tended to her garden, she was startled by the sudden arrival of a team of burly men in uniform. "What's going on?" she demanded, her heart racing. "Ma'am, we're from the local code enforcement office," one of the men announced, his voice gruff. "We've received a complaint about the state of your property, and we're here to issue a citation." Lily's eyes widened in disbelief. "A citation? But my garden is perfectly maintained." The man shook his head. "I'm sorry, ma'am, but we have our orders. Your garden has been deemed in violation of local ordinances. You have 72 hours to bring it into compliance or face heavy fines." As the code enforcement team began snapping photographs and scribbling notes, Lily felt a growing sense of dread. The HOA's retaliation had taken an unexpected and alarming turn. Lily's plea for help reached Tucker Carlson's ears, and within hours, a new media firestorm erupted. The popular Fox News host, known for his unapologetic defense of individual liberties, immediately mobilized his team to investigate the code enforcement citation against Lily's garden. "This is a clear-cut case of government overreach enabled by a tyrannical HOA," Tucker declared passionately on his show. "Lily is a hard-working homeowner who simply wants to enjoy the fruits of her labor, and she's being punished for it. We won't stand for this kind of abuse of power." Lily watched the segment in awe, her heart swelling with gratitude. Tucker's unwavering support had given her the courage to stand up to the HOA's intimidation tactics, and now he was amplifying her message to a national audience. The backlash was swift and fierce. Outraged viewers flooded the code enforcement office with calls and emails, demanding that the citation be withdrawn. Social media erupted with a tidal wave of support for Lily, with hashtags like #SaveLilyGarden and #HOA abuse trending across platforms. Mrs. Wilkins and the HOA found themselves on the defensive, forced to justify their actions in the face of mounting public scrutiny. In a desperate attempt to regain control of the narrative, they held a hastily organized press conference where the HOA president tried to paint Lily as an unreasonable troublemaker. "This is not about a garden," Mrs. Wilkins declared, her voice quivering with frustration. "It's about upholding the community standards that keep our neighborhoods safe and attractive. Lily's refusal to comply with our guidelines is putting the entire community at risk." But Lily was ready. Flanked by Tucker Carlson's legal team, she stepped up to the microphone, her eyes blazing with determination. "This is about far more than a garden," she retorted, her voice firm and unwavering. "It's about the fundamental rights of homeowners to enjoy their own property without interference from overbearing, unaccountable HOAs. The public has a right to know the truth about how these organizations abuse their power, and that's exactly what we're going to expose." The tense exchange was broadcast live, with millions of viewers tuning in to watch the clash of wills unfold. Lily's defiant stance against the HOA's heavy-handed tactics had struck a chord with the nation, and the battle lines had been drawn. As the press conference concluded, Lily knew that the war was far from over. But with Tucker Carlson and the power of the media on her side, she felt more empowered than ever to fight for her garden and her right to live freely in her own home. In the days that followed, the battle between Lily and the HOA only intensified. With the national spotlight firmly fixed on their conflict, both sides dug in, unwilling to back down. Lily's appearance on Tucker Carlson's show had galvanized a growing army of supporters, who flooded the HOA's offices with calls, emails, and even physical protests. The pressure was mounting, and Mrs. Wilkins and her cohorts found themselves increasingly isolated and defensive. But the HOA president was not one to concede defeat easily. Determined to regain control of the narrative, she launched a coordinated campaign to discredit Lily and her supporters, painting them as radical agitators who were disrupting the peace and harmony of the community. "This is not about a garden anymore," Mrs. Wilkins declared in a scathing op-ed. "It's about a small group of people who are willing to trample on the rights of their neighbors in pursuit of their own selfish interests. We will not be bullied or intimidated." Lily, however, refused to be cowed. Buoyed by the outpouring of public support, she doubled down on her defiance, using every available platform to call out the HOA's abuses and demand accountability. "This is not about a single garden," she told a packed press conference. "It's about the fundamental rights of homeowners to live in peace and freedom, without the constant threat of harassment and retaliation from their HOAs. We will not back down until justice is served." As the war of words escalated, the HOA began to explore more aggressive tactics. They filed a series of lawsuits against Lily, accusing her of violating community bylaws and disrupting the peace. The legal battles raged on, with both sides pouring resources into the fight. Lily, for her part, remained undaunted. With Tucker Carlson's legal team by her side, she met each new challenge head-on, refusing to back down. She knew that the stakes were high, but she was determined to prevail, no matter the cost. As the conflict reached a fever pitch, the community itself began to fracture. Neighbors who had once lived in harmony now found themselves divided, with some rallying to Lily's cause while others stood firmly with the HOA. The tension was palpable, and Lily could feel the weight of the responsibility she had assumed. But with each passing day, her resolve only grew stronger. She was fighting not just for her garden, but for the rights of all homeowners who had been subjected to the tyranny of overbearing HOAs. The endgame was in sight, and Lily knew that the final showdown was imminent. The tension in the community had reached a boiling point as the legal battle between Lily and the HOA dragged on. Both sides were dug in, unwilling to concede an inch in their high-stakes confrontation. Lily, buoyed by the unwavering support of Tucker Carlson and her growing army of advocates, refused to back down. She had become a symbol of the fight against HOA overreach, her vibrant garden a testament to the right of homeowners to enjoy their own property without interference. On the other side, Mrs. Wilkins and the HOA leadership were determined to reassert their authority. They had launched a barrage of lawsuits, alleging everything from nuisance claims to zoning violations, in a desperate attempt to silence Lily and regain control. As the court proceedings dragged on, the community itself became increasingly fractured. Neighbors who had once lived in harmony now found themselves taking sides, with the animosity between the pro-Lily and pro-HOA factions growing more palpable by the day. Tensions reached a fever pitch when a group of HOA supporters, emboldened by Mrs. Wilkins' fiery rhetoric, decided to take matters into their own hands. Under the cover of night, they crept into Lily's garden, armed with shovels and pruning shears, and set about destroying her beloved flowers and plants. Lily, alerted by the sound of commotion, rushed outside to confront the vandals. In the chaos that ensued, tempers flared, and a physical altercation broke out. Lily found herself at the center of the melee, her cries for help mingling with the shouts and curses of her attackers. It was in that moment that the tide began to turn. As the news of the garden attack spread, public outrage reached a fever pitch. Thousands of Lily's supporters mobilized, flooding the streets with protests and calling for the HOA's dissolution. The pressure became too much for Mrs. Wilkins and her cohorts. Faced with the prospect of further legal battles and public humiliation, they finally conceded defeat, announcing that they would be disbanding the HOA and allowing Lily to maintain her garden in all its vibrant glory. As the news broke, Lily found herself overwhelmed with a sense of triumph and relief. Her long, arduous battle had finally come to a close, and she had emerged victorious, her garden and her rights as a homeowner intact. In the aftermath, Lily took a moment to survey the lush, colorful oasis that had been the source of so much turmoil. She knew that the fight had been worth it, not just for her own sake, but for the sake of all homeowners who had suffered under the heavy-handed rule of overbearing HOAs. With a smile, she turned her gaze to the distant horizon, already anticipating the next chapter in her journey of defending individual freedoms and the simple joys of home.